you may be in the known world. Welcome back. We've been on hiatus. This is the Crown Between Two Roses, and we're very excited to be back with some more very cool interviews. So I'm Duchess Englund, and my co-host tonight is Countess Beatrice, and I'll flick over to her to do our acknowledgement.
Thank you very much. Good nobles, we come here together in the spirit of fellowship, deepening of our skills, sharing of our knowledge, and a shared interest in the search to find truth through experimental archaeology and historical inquiry. It is in this context that I, Beatrice, on behalf of my kingdom, acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands upon which we gather. We recognise their continuing connection to land and culture, and we pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and the elders from other communities who may be here today. Thank you so much. And tonight, we're very excited to be welcoming Sir Mari.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
I think it's going to be very exciting tonight because everyone knows who you are, but I'm not sure everyone knows like really much about you. So hopefully we can get a little bit of the inside goss. But to start with, can you tell us how you found the SCA?
Ooh, my pork chop story. I don't know why they're called a pork chop story, but that's what I was told that your origin story is called. Okay. Maybe somebody will enlighten us. So I was 14 and we had a little Renaissance fair in Grants Pass, Oregon. And my best friend and I trundled along, and my baby sister, and it was mostly merchants dressed up in medieval-ish stuff. And they had, a couple of jugglers, and they had some, pin the crown on the king type things. But they had invited the SCA for ambiance. And so they had one pavilion, and they had 6 heavies, and they had several ladies in waiting running around. And they had a little tournament, and we got to watch. And one of the fighters actually asked me for my favor. And I had a little wreath with ribbons wrapped around it. So I took the ribbons off my wreath and I tied them around his arm. And it was everything. It was fantastic. And until then, we had never heard about the SCA. We had seen the Renaissance Fair stuff that was in California and Nevada. And we had planned to go, but my mother was not keen to let 14-year-old girls go for a week to California by themselves. So can't blame her really. So we were completely smitten. And we got started the next year when I was 15, and we met all the folks, and we just thought this was the greatest thing ever. And my best friend and I, we went away for the weekend. We were off to her grandmother's house, and we drew up our dresses and our devices. And, we had clothing. Even calling it garb is a bit far-fetched, but we had a bunch of clothing that was very medieval-esque that we had planned to do. Everything from, Robin Hood stuff all the way to beautiful princesses. And we were very excited. And then we found that our local group, Myrtle Holt in Grants Pass, we found them through the group that had come. Myrtle Holt had no heavy fighters. So the group that they had invited was from Ashland, Oregon, which is Glendoofin. I'm going to go with that. Somebody will correct us. And they had sent their fighters over, but our shire had no fighters. And we were very small, and mostly our main populace was made up of under 18-year-olds. We had like 3 adults in the group, and one was the seneschal, and I'm sure one was a treasurer, and they probably had other important roles, but we didn't care because, we were kids. And so we would go every week to our shire meeting in the big basement, and we would sing songs, and sometimes there was food that could have been medieval. And we had a great time with it. And it was a lot of fun. And then they were like, there are events that are outside of the bank. We were like,
there's more?
Really? That's amazing. And so eventually we started venturing outside of the bank to actual events. And it's been since then, my sister is still a member, and I'm a member, and my mother got into the group because she realized she was never seeing me, and that at least put her in the same piece of property for a weekend. But, as anybody who has been in for any amount of time knows, that you don't actually see people necessarily that, if they're coming to spend time with you, I kiss Yevon, and when we get to Coronet Festival and say, love you, hopefully I'll see you in bed at some point. Bye.
I know that feeling.
You kind of, do a high five as you pass on the Eric, because you're each going different directions. But she was good, but she got into it as well. And it's been ever since then that, you find your group. And one of the nice things about the SCA, of course, is that we have family wherever the SCA is, and they welcome you as if you've always been there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I love there's such a wide community of the SCA around.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, sorry, you go.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask the question. We know that you have quite a wide variety and a diversity of interests. What was one of the first interests that you had?
I think the first was in the costuming and actually making the things, because I realized rapidly that I was never going to be somebody that has a persona. I have a wardrobe. I don't have a persona. So that meant that if I wanted to have the archer's Robin Hood outfit, and I wanted to have the princess outfit, and I wanted this thing from 16th century, and I wanted this thing from 14th century, and this 12th century dress was beautiful, that I had to make them, because there wasn't anybody that was going to pick up that slack for me. And so I started sewing, and I had sewn little things up until then. But my mother was very much a pattern sewer. So she would get, McCall's, and she would make dresses, and she would make shirts, and she would make those things. So when I started doing medieval stuff, she was out of her depth. And of course, at that point, there was no easy sew, Game of Thrones costumes, right? So you couldn't even fake it. You had to, you could look at some things and go, well, this says a tunic, but it was the 80s. So tunic meant something different. But we went, okay, long shirt thing, I can make that. And slowly it got more and more elaborate as I sewed for different things. And of course we were children, so our budget was very limited, and there was a lot of thrift store curtains and bed sheets and things like that we made garb out of. But that was a very good start for me to be able to actually play with those things and to be able to learn how clothing went together. But there was a lot of that was self-taught, and there were things that later in life, as I became more and more skilled, I actually, went, oh, it'd be really nice if somebody let me know that, which is why I have Sewing with Sir Mari on YouTube. So that I tell you that thing that, gosh, would have been really nice to know when I started.
Sorry.
I didn't actually start fighting until 1991. So I got in 1983, and I didn't start fighting until 1991. I had moved from Oregon when I went to college to Reno, Nevada, which is Silver Desert in the Principality of Sinagua in the Kingdom of the West. And my people there, Siobhan and Connor and Khalid, and the people were very, very helpful, and they were fighters. And I looked at them fighting and went, ew, that is sweaty and nasty, and I don't like it. And you're getting hit with sticks, and I'm just going to stay over here. So, the fact that I am where I am now, Siobhan became kind of a surrogate mom for me, and she is now Mistress Siobhan, because, well, we've all been in the SCA, these past 30 years. So, she too has gained in ranks, but she was a fighter, and she, when I got knighted, she was my spokesperson, and she laughed at me because she's like, yep, sweaty, nasty, that's us. Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. Going back to the garb stuff, is there something that you made in the early years that like you're just super proud of, that you made out of curtains or a tablecloth or whatever, but it just sticks in your memory as, yeah, I did that?
I think my favorite was a dress that I had made out of curtains, and in the line drawing books that we had in the library, it said it was English, Knowing what I know now, I think that they were trying to depict a German Landsknecht type dress. But at the time, the book said English and I didn't know better. So I had made the dress and it was out of this bluish purple shimmery curtain. And I had some black woven braid that I did around the bottom, which was supposed to be guarding, but I didn't know that. And it had purple ribbons running through it. And I did with the big pizza hat out of velvet. I hate velvet. I hate velvet to this day, but it was pretty. And I did all the feathers, and it was lovely. It was a lovely gown. And, I had a waist of, 23 inches. So, I probably could have wore a flour sack and looked fine because, well, it fit the dynamics of how people should look. So I had done that one, and that one comes up on my memories on a regular basis. And I repost it every time somebody's like, what was some of your first garb? And it was a little into the track because I was 19 when I made that one. So I've been sewing for, 4 or 5 years at that point, but it's gone off to better homes, hopefully.
It sounds lovely.
I think it might fit around my thigh now. But only if we lace it tight.
So what eventually turned you from thinking, oh, that's gooey, sweaty, fighter, gross stinkiness to, yeah, I'll give that a go?
We did a lot of demos, and I had moved to Golden Rivers, which is another province as opposed to a barony of Sinagua. And I had moved to Golden Rivers, and we did a lot of demos, and I would marshal because, well, I could do that part. It didn't involve being sweaty and icky. But what would happen is our boys would get out there and fight, and the little girls around the edge would go, but do women fight? And I would say, oh, yes. There's Siobhan, she fights. And we have Sir Hilary of Serendip, and she fights. Yep, they're fighters. But I knew that they couldn't see them. And then they would ask, do you fight? And I'd be like, no. And so I finally went, okay. And I was with Duke Rolf at the time. He was the first gentleman to make me king. He was the king who made me queen. He was my first king in that he made me queen versus he was the first person I saw on the throne. And so having a duke in the house, I went, all right, let's do this thing. Teach me how to do this. And so we started, doing pell work, and we started doing it slow. We put together all the armor because I wanted to be able to be there when the little girls went, do we have some representative on this field? And then, of course, my ego got in the way, and I wanted to be good at it. It wasn't enough to be a happy bad fighter. I wanted to be a good fighter, and so that kind of took over. And my armor went through multiple iterations so that it would actually fit. My armorer Max made my leg armor, and he brought them to me, and he goes, "I made you chicky boo legs." But I was very safe.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I just want to go back. You said that the group that you're in wasn't a barony; it was a province.
Right.
What's the difference?
Well, some of the difference in the Kingdom of the West. Of course, Lochcock was a part of the Kingdom of the West as a principality, and a crown principality before that. But a province is basically the same rules as a barony, the 25 members, but they don't have the baronial heads. Now, I know Golden Rivers had baronial heads, and there was some kerfluffle when it came to a baronial changeover, and they went, you know what? We're done with that. We're just gonna be a province. And so your seneschal, you'll like this, your seneschal has the most power in the barony. And you don't have that baronial head. And so what both Silver Desert and Golden Rivers are provinces without baronial heads. And they, every once in a while, they would, pick up the conversation again and say, do we want to be barony? Do we want to have the head of state on this? And ultimately they would decide no. And they have championships. And in Golden Rivers, the Lord and Lady of Golden Rivers are often the heads that sit at tables and do that part of the events. And there are, each of them, like most baronies, have their own provincial awards, and they give those out to whoever. A lot of times there's a semi-polling order for each of them. And so they take that information on board and to give awards to those who do good service or good arts in their barony, in their province.
That's really interesting. It's such a different mindset.
Yeah. So pay attention, Stormhold. Don't you get rid of them.
What are you planning? So we know that you hail from the West. Did you live in any other kingdoms before you came across to here?
Well, in Myrtle Holt, that was in Ontario. It's in the southernmost area of Ontario, and that area has built up quite a bit apparently, and they have quite a few piers in that area now. But like I said, when I was there, between what is mundanely Grants Pass, Oregon, Ashland, Oregon, and Klamath Falls, we had no piers. We had one lord and one lady in Ashland, and they were important because they were the lord and the lady. And right before I had left there, King Barrack came down to a Samhain and actually made like 5 people lords and ladies, and it disrupted our entire power structure. We had no idea what to do with them. Like, how can this person be a lord or a lady? We know them.
Like finding out peers are real, like they're just normal people.
Well, we didn't even know peers. I had no idea what a peer was. You know what a knight is because they're in storybooks, but I had no idea what a laurel or a pelican was, let alone how to be one. It was just very strange. And the king came, and oh my gosh, I think all of us nearly died because the king and the queen probably were super lonely that whole event because nobody would talk to them. You go by, oh, Your Majesty, and away we'd go, scampering, hoping that we didn't catch their eye because we might go to hell or something.
It reminds me quite a bit of when Lockhart was principality and the Crown of the West would come over. Yeah, it was very similar. You don't go, no, that's the crown. No.
Yeah. It was something that I tried to remember that feeling though when I was queen both times to remember that there are those folks who just get so flustered with it, and sometimes it's pure fear, sometimes it actually is that paralyzation, but part of it is because you have become a mythical figure, not because of your own doing, but because of how the esteem that we hold our royalty in. And to remember that there are those people that they're not trying to be rude, they're trying to talk. And sometimes they'll say stuff that you're like, well, that was an interesting way to phrase that. And mostly it's because they've said 8 words at the same time. So breathe, be as gracious as possible, let them have their moment to actually be able to talk to you and realize you're actually a person.
Yeah.
Totally. So, you go, Bea.
I was going to ask about being queen. How many times did you reign?
I reigned twice in the West. I reigned once in 1992 with Rolf, and I reigned again in 2008 with Gemini. And of course, in the West, we have 3 reigns a year when it's not pandemic. And so so you're looking at about 4 months to a reign, and it varies a little bit because of the way the schedule falls, but it's a very different mindset, and usually have 6 weeks up to a month and a half to prepare. So you don't have that same thing that some of the kingdoms have where, you win and you have 5 months lead up and then you have 6 months on the throne. And, so, you're basically royalty for a year. For us, it's a very short time period, but it's very intense because they're still trying to get to all the places in the West. that you can. And because we have Alaska, Oortha, and we had Lockock during my first reign, and Rolf and I were fortunate enough to be able to come to Lockock, which is a lot of the reason that set why I'm here today. If you follow the little trail through and pull that thread, it's based on the fact that in 1992 I came to visit you.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's really cool.
And our Baron Alwyn and Ingrid were prince and princess when I came over as queen.
Wow.
So,
Yes.
and they are, of course, here in Inelgard with me. And so they've been now I get to say, lifelong companions since those very first days, because of course, as the citted royalty of Lockock, they were at multiple of the events that we were at while we were here, and were fantastic host and hostess. So that was lovely to be able to find them still here and still active, and to this day. Yeah.
That's really cool. I love how it's come full circle, and like you're now living in the same place, because like South Australia's kind of, or Inelgard is away from everywhere else. It's kind of isolated. And so to go back to be with them, that's really, really cool.
It was one of the difficult things though when I first moved here, was because I came to Roni Festival a couple of times, and well, you all live there, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I actually do. I'm just down the
road. So I have friends all over Lockock, and I would get to see them because they were all in one place, and I would fly back to the United States and they'd fly back to their parts of the country. And when I moved here, one of the hardest parts was knowing that my dear friends are still 10 to 18 hours away from me, depending on where they are. And it was like, that's very inconvenient. I'm on the other side of the planet, and I still only get to see you at festival.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hence to see you in the morning and back in the evenings.
Did you find much difference between your first reign and your second reign in terms, because of the length of time between them? Was there much difference in the kingdom itself and how its customs, its traditions, and all of that?
I don't think the kingdom was radically different. The way we reigned did, because we went from everything was by letters and to everything was online, and to have that electronic jump and to have everything be so immediate was a very different thing. We actually had, in my first reign, we had a phone budget because we're calling Alaska and we're calling Lockock, so Oortha and Lockock, and that was not something that we really worried about, because even those international calls are really reduced prices, if not free, depending on your plan. And that was not the case in the first reign. And if you wanted to get a hold of someone, you wrote them a letter and you put a stamp on it. And I had a post office budget for stamps that I sent stuff out. And so, the communication with our guard, there was a phone tree, so our guard would know what they were doing at the next coming event. But because the West has so many events, we're seeing each other and we're in close proximity compared to Lockock. You're seeing these people almost every weekend. And so, that arrangement is a lot of, well, we're showing up, we'll see what happens. And there's a phone tree if something changes. And then to be able to reign and have everything online, and to have Facebook groups and to have all of that. I used to tell my people, I'm queen of the West 3 days a week, but I'm queen of the internet 5.
Yeah.
It's pretty true.
And people expect that immediate turnaround. They'll say, okay, well, what are we doing for this? And have you looked at that? And I've sent you these documents, and you're like, I'm at work. I have a job. I can't answer you in 15 minutes. You're gonna have to wait.
Absolutely. And you shouldn't have to answer in 15 minutes either. That's the other thing, right?
No, you shouldn't. And a lot of those things really that we're told, from the beginning, the best words for you are, I'll take that under advisement. And having that little pause, be able to hit that pause button and actually talk it over with the king and talk it over with people that are essential to that before you make a decision. And even simple things, because you think, oh, that makes sense. Yes, of course, you should do that. And then you find out that that was really not a good plan, that there was traditions and there was stuff and there were people that had always planned things and like, oh, what have I done? So I've never regretted pausing. I have regretted just, saying, go ahead, do a thing and have that come back to bite me. So.
Oh, good now.
Relate, I'm sure.
I want to know how did you convey whatever your hand signals were that you wanted to get out of a conversation via phone tree? She's gonna do this weird thing with her hand in her ear.
No, that's more of a breaking up.
So in the middle of those two reigns, you reigned as princess. That's right. Yes, between the two.
I did. I reigned once. So in 2002, I reigned as princess with Gemini, and then he won crown for me in 2008. So that there was that reign as principality in between, which was nice because as far as the electronics part of that, it kind of got us up to speed on that part because we were still doing Yahoo groups. We weren't doing Facebook yet. It was Yahoo groups. Facebook came later, but with doing the Yahoo groups and doing all that, we could communicate better. And because being a princess versus being the queen meant that, if something was big, if some big bad thing happened, we could kick it upstairs to mom and dad, because we were not, the buck did not end with us. It actually could be kicked upstairs. And so, you're in charge of your own Coronet tournaments and you're in charge of how your principality runs and all of that. But the overseers of everything, you very much feel like you do as a baron and baroness, that you are holding that land instead for the king and queen. So, we were very aware of that. And we were very lucky in that our other principality siblings from Ortha and from the Mists, because by then Lockdock had, of course, become its own kingdom. We were very close knit. And so we had a lot of shenanigans between the six of us. And that was good fun. And of course, bringing our principalities in on that to help entertain them all, I hope.
That's awesome. So when in the timeline did you win the Coronet tourney? This is the one I want to hear about.
In 2012. So I was knighted in 2009. And I went to finals in 2010 and I died in finals. And that was okay because Lachlan, who is now a Duke of Artemisia, bested me in those, and he was just a scruffy unbelt. So, but that actually launched him to being considered for knighthood, and he's an amazing human. So he was like, "Oh, okay." So I became his knight counselor, and that worked out really well. And the knight counselor is kind of like how you guys do captain of the guard. So it's the person that leads the unbelts through guard and helps them develop. And we do shenanigans and help set up tents and help set up the Eric and help do all the things to keep the principality rocking and rolling, kind of behind the scenes. So that was nice because I got to be his right-hand person and support on that as far as the guard went and that part of it went. And we started Knights Errant, which had been done in multiple iterations through the kingdom. But the way we did it was that we would look at some of the far-flung areas of the kingdom. Now, bear in mind, when I say far-flung, I'm talking 4 hours away.
It's all relative, right?
Those of you in the West, you must understand that when we went to border war and the guys here in Ilgard said, it's not that far. It's easy run. It's 9 hours away. Okay. Our closest barony is 9 hours away. So yeah, that was a different experience. But anyway, but we could do it as a day trip. And so we would pile folks in the car and we would show up at a little fighter practice on Sunday out in the sticks of the West. And we would, notify all the knights in that area. And so we would all get together on one day and have 25 folks show up to their little shire thing. They knew that, we planned it in advance, but it allowed us to go and fight with them once a month, and to help get them to know more about the society. And then we'd always do like a barbecue or something afterwards, which was really good because as cool as the fighting was, having that after fighting discussions, and we'd talk about the peerages and we'd talk about, how the rule of the kingdom worked. And we'd talk about, we'd had arts and science folks come with us. We had pelicans come with us so that then they could talk to them more and give them support and support the peers that were already in that group if they had peers. And so we would go to a different place each month and let the peers on the way on that route know that we were going, and we'd all show up. And it was very well supported. It went really well. But because I didn't win, it gave me the opportunity to do that. That's what happens when you make a pelican a knight. So, and my squire, who is now knighted, Helga, she continued to do that in the form of meet and beats, where she would every 6 months, she would have a tournament and usually at one end of the kingdom or the other, so that everybody could show up and basically they could come in and fight the knights and get seen in their area. And so that continued. So having said all that, so in 2012, I actually took the coronet. And so I got to reign as princess by my own hand, and I won from my dear friend, Brock of Alderden, who is a pelican, and is not a fighter and has never been a fighter. And I have been fighting for Brock since 1995. So he was, basically I fought for him for 17 years before I was able to put him on the throne.
Oh, that's so lovely.
Yeah. And he's lovely. He's absolutely lovely. And I really felt that he's one of those people and peers that I thought the principality really would benefit from his rule, and they would benefit from having him be able to demonstrate not just being a strong figure on the throne that wasn't just a stick jock. And he did splendid. And I think that I was right in my assessment that the principality really did benefit from his rule. Although it's great fun because he'll go to Penzic and they're like, "Ooh, Viscount. Wow, that little dude, he must be tough." Because he's like 5'2", 5'3". Sorry, Brock, if you're taller than that.
Small and mighty.
He is mighty. He is mighty. He is a lawyer by trade, and there is a badger on his device for a reason.
All right. Don't mess with Brock. Got it. So here's a question. Fighters have different approaches to, I guess, inspirational, like the inspiration as they go to the field. Some, like, it's not part of their kind of mental process. Fighting is a physical, it's them and their opponent, or melee situation, you get more people. Whereas others are very much into the romantic kind of, I draw inspiration, I want to do good because I want to put my consort on the throne, or to because they inspire me. So for you, is it a kind of a romantic ideal that inspires you to perform at a different level, or is it more around the technique and the physicality and the sport mental space? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I walk the line between them, because when there's a lot of the physical for me, and because none of this came naturally to me, that there's a reason it took me 18 years to get knighted. It's mastering the physical part of fighting and the mental part of fighting, because I would get in my own way a lot. My own headspace would, people would be like, "Okay, you're doing great, but you get to a tournament and you just choke. What's going on?" And so I had to work through that part. And having Brock be steadfast and not a romantic partner actually was probably the best thing for me, because, you know, I wasn't relying on him for happiness and sex. I was relying on him to be my friend, and I knew that he would, as long as I acted honorably and had a good time, he didn't care, right? Win, lose, did I have a good time? Did you have fun? That's what he was worried about. But when it got tough, you know, one of the things we had to sit down and have some deep discussions with is that his presence and wanting to do well for him would carry me through, because as you guys know and tried to play on, I have a hero button. I'm looking at you two. And it was easier for me to continue the fight when I wasn't having fun, because I wanted to do well for him, and I wanted to do well for my squire, and I wanted to do well for my knight. And so that actually kept me going, because, you know, I was told at one point when I was like, that's it, burn my armor, I'm done. And they're like, well, if you don't like it, you shouldn't do it. And it's like, that's not how fighting works. The only way out is through, because you know, you have such a good time fighting, but the learning process, and when you keep getting knocked back, you know, it's hard. And to pick it up again and to do it another day, because you know that there's fun, you just gotta find it again. And then you'll have a day that's just a blast. Best day of your life. And you're like, there we go. That's why I do this. And then you plateau and you start up the next hill of learning, and you're like, I hate this. This sucks. And then once again, you have another day. And my knight is Havek, and Havek is an amazing fighter and is very analytical in how he fights. And so he would be frustrated with fighting on a completely different level than I do. You know, he would die in crown and be like, oh, that was a terrible day. I'm like, yes, 9th round. That must suck, you Grace. We have different levels of suck. Not that mine was worse, but I was, you know, being killed in 3rd and 4th round. He was being killed in 9th round, but that didn't mean that, you know, it wasn't bad. So it's like, pick it up, go do it again. These are tools of our trade. This is what we do. It's like, okay, this is what we do.
Yeah, I have to say my philosophy on walking in on the tourney field is, if I don't get one-shotted, I'm having a good day.
There you go. There you go. And some of my absolute best fights have been fights I've lost. But, you know, having that interaction and that camaraderie on the field, and having the interplay of the physicality and the emotions and the trust, because in fighting heavy and even fighting rapier, it's a game of trust. You know, I'm trusting you to calibrate the blows that I'm striking against you. I'm trusting you to calibrate the blows against me. You know, the way we play this is that as a littler person, because we're in the SCA, I get to be a little person. As a little person, you know, I can go against Theodric, who is a giant, and know that he's not going to harm me. He may kill me, but he's not going to hurt me. And if he does hurt me, his first reaction is, oh my God, I'm so sorry. You know, I didn't mean that. But I trust him to have control in that fight. And we're going all out, right? Because he doesn't want to lose either. So, you know, we may be going all out, but you have that trust in your opponents that you're going to have a good time. And when you get done, you know, it smiles on everybody's faces. That's excellent.
Yeah, the bruises feel good at the end of the day. They're happy bruises.
They're happy bruises.
They hurt. They're a good hurt.
Yeah. You earned them.
The workmates don't agree with that, but
That's fine.
So you are one of the, what I would say, particularly in Lockhart, is one of the rare peers, because you have 4 peerages.
I do.
Yeah. It's not something that is usual here. There are very few people that do have that. And we've spoken that you have been pelicaned and that you're a knight, but you're a laurel as well.
I am.
What were you laureled in?
Well, all that sewing when I was young finally paid off. I was laureled primarily for my Germans and for my Byzantine research. And so my Germans are what I think added the pizzazz they were looking for. It's very difficult to get a costume peerage for early period if you are not a weaver and you're not creating the fabrics, because just doing like with Byzantines, you have very simple tunicas and dalmaticas that have lots of fancy decoration. And in a lot of the research, we know that they wove those decorations in as opposed to embroidering them on or appliquing them on. So we have some research that can support that. But as Havek said, you're just making fancy pillowcases. There's nothing to this. It's like, yeah, well, that's not entirely true. And so because he does Germans, my knight Havek, I started doing Germans for the family because we all decided that one 12th night we were going to do Germans. And so that started the research. And luckily I had some pretty good giants I could stand on the shoulders of to use their research, such as it was at the time. And that kind of launched it. And because Germans are very, very pizzazz, very specky, and folks see them and they're like, "Ooh, that's amazing."
Especially
like, that Byzantine took me twice as long because I put 1,000 pearls on it. But yes, by all means, this is specky and amazing. So that's primarily what I got laureled in. And a lot of it, I joke that I got laureled for sewing for mutants because one of the way I sew is for movement. And because I dealt with fighters primarily, and all fighters are mutants, just because they have, some of them are asymmetrical, they have muscles where normal humans don't build up those muscles because they're not carrying a shield and a sword, and they have fast twitch muscles on one side and they have heavy bearing muscles on the other side. And to have them have garments that they could wear, not only on the field, but also walking around the feast, if they can't throw the shot, they're not going to be able to wear the garment. They're going to rip it out. So having that body construction so that people can move well in their garments is what I actually focus on.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. You and I have had many conversations about this, and it's definitely something that I've taken as a learning curve, that if I can't move effectively in garb, then it's not really functional for me. And I like to cook, I like to go and do stuff. So I know when I was queen, Acacia was amazing and made a collection of garb for me so that I could push my sleeves up.
Yes. And we run that because we are trying to be historical. And so you have to look at the fit, fashion, and function on what you're wearing. And there's a certain amount that's like, okay, I know that the fit on this would have been much tighter for this level of nobility. They wouldn't have had to put up their own pavilion. They didn't have to do their own hair. They weren't running after 3 kids. They had people for that. But I need to be able to do all those things and carry off the look of being nobility. So it's taking that and going, okay, how does this work? Or having somebody that is a very hot person and saying, okay, what garments can I put you in that you will still look noble and elegant, but you're not sweating to death? So, and that takes a bit of futzing about and trying to walk those lines between the fit and the function and the fashion.
Totally. Still haven't quite figured out how to make pants that just don't split all the time, but
I have seen secrets.
I'll hit you up for it.
That's a much longer conversation.
Yeah. I got to say too that you've made Yevon look good, so that's well done.
Hey, he looks good.
No, you really did. We love you for that.
Oh, he's lovely, and he works well with. There's because he also has a wide variety of things that he likes, and he likes a lot of the later period things. So, he has a set of Spanish, and he has a set of Italians, and now he has his Germans. So it's fun because I get to make a variety of things for him.
I know that you're into heraldic costumes to some degree. Like, you can see that your hood's matching your heraldry, and I think we all know, like, the Sircoat. That's Mari Sircoat. Do you make matching outfits with your stuff and Yevon's stuff?
No. It's one of those magical thinking things of for Brock and I, we had complementary clothes. So, like, we had our principality clothes with the quartered silver and gold, that we had matching, but everything else was kind of complementary. And so there are complementary things, but not necessarily matchy. And we both have our own heraldry, obviously, with Yevon and I. So we do that. And that Sircoat, I'll tell you a secret, that Sircoat is actually, if you look back in pictures of old, you see that Sircoat over and over and over. There's actually like 4 different generations of that Sircoat. So as the Sircoat becomes a fighting Sircoat and starts to deteriorate, the first one actually is now barding for a horse. And then, the next Sircoat, I had a dress Sircoat, and then I had a fighting Sircoat. And then as that fighting Sircoat becomes far too daggy, then the dress Sircoat then goes to being the fighting Sircoat, and the next dress Sircoat gets made. So I was looking back through pictures going, yeah, I've been wearing this for a long time, and it's actually multiple Sircoats, but it works.
Yeah. It's like when you find a good shirt that fits, you buy 5 of them.
That's right. I really wish I could just Xerox it, because I love my stencils and I love this all over pattern, but boy, when you're putting it on something, you love it less. Until it's finished. If you're like, can I make a copy of this? Just no? Okay.
So how did the Wonder Woman theme come into everything?
Well, a part of it is because we are aware now of far more female superheroes than I think we were 15 years ago. I think Marvel has done a good job of introducing us to more and more of them in the DC universe, but I was never big into comic books. But Wonder Woman, of course, had her television show in the 80s with Linda Carter, and it's like, oh, that's Wonder Woman. And then when I started fighting, there are a lot of people that are like, oh yes, you're so much like Wonder Woman. I was like, I can go with this. I totally can roll this. This is fantastic. And so I just kind of integrated it into things. And so now it's been kind of a trademark, and I wind up with lots of Wonder Woman bits and pieces in things.
And tunics.
Tunics and Sircoats. Yeah. So even made a Sircoat, a Wonder Woman Sircoat for one of the heraldic melees for festival. And she gave that one to me because, well, it was appropriate. So I have that one. And I have a Wonder Woman coat hardy that I made because in Sinagua, our fall Coronet falls on Halloween weekend, usually right around there. And so we do our normal straight medieval clothes during the daytime. And then for final court and for the rest of the evening, we tend to kind of cosplay, I guess. Or if you're a Disney fan, we're bounding. So you take stuff and you go, okay, I'm going to make a tunic, but it's out of skeleton fabric. Or I'm going to, and some of the kids dress up completely, of course, and just wear their costumes because, well, they should be out trick-or-treating. Instead, we drug them to this event. So they get to trick-or-treat between the pavilions. And so we dress up. And so the year that Brock and I were Prince and Princess, we did Wonder Woman and Thor and had a superhero theme. And so the court joined us and everybody did the things. I put Brock in a little muscle suit and did the Thor outfit. He was adorable. And he wore a big, hold it.
That's awesome.
He was adorable. So good fun.
Like that's the thing, right? It's the SCA. Have fun. Like you don't have to be serious all the time.
Right. And you know, making the Wonder Woman coat hardy and then the Thor tunic, you know, it's like it's good. And we had a lot of people that did various coat hardies, and we had Captain America, and she did her Italians with the blue and the star, and she had an umbrella that she would pop out a parasol that had the shield on it.
That sounds awesome.
So I'm keen to hear, what are some of the culture shocks that you got moving here, both mundanely and SCA culturally?
I think the distance was one of the things that I hadn't parsed. You know it. People can tell you that that's 18 hours away, and you're like, yeah, okay, 18 hours away. But then when you realize that your best friend is 18 hours away, and you're not getting to them anytime soon, and then the cost of flights has varied, of course, but there's times that they're really expensive, and going to visit somebody is not a minor activity, you know. And when they all dropped, you know, we were all hopping around like crazy people on airplanes, and then pandemic. So that was a shock there. For the most part, the SCA was pretty much what I know the SCA to be. And I think a part of that is because you are children of the West. There was a lot of the traditions and a lot of the mentality of how things function that you had already inherited. And so it had grown from when you departed and became your own kingdom. But none of it was so foreign as to be difficult. So that actually has worked out just fine. It's very different in that, because of our distance between baronies, is that we don't have an event every weekend. You know, we have fighter practice in Edelgard on a Sunday. Let me explain to you how crazy that thought is. When I was in the West and Yevon was here, we would talk on the phone because, well, you could do that via the internet and we didn't have to be billed for it, which is good because we would talk for, 3 hours at a stretch sometimes every day. So, and be like, well, what are you doing? And he'd be like, well, we're home. We go shopping on Saturday because there's not an event. We have the event on Sunday. I'm like, okay, well, it's Friday night and I'm driving to the event. I'm going to be there Saturday, and Sunday I'm going to drive home from the event. Monday I'm going to fighter practice. Tuesday I'm going to fighter practice an hour and a half away. Wednesday we have dance practice. Thursday I'm going to work on my paperwork. Friday I'm getting ready to go to an event. And that was our weekly schedule. Yeah. So it's crazy to be someplace that it's like, I could, between the colleges here and the barony itself, I could pick up something almost every night, but it's the same people. It's not dealing with, completely different baronies just by driving an hour. So that part was very interesting to deal with. And that, and then your baronial heads, of course, because you don't have principalities, having the baronial heads basically be your prince and princess, but without the power a prince and princess has over their own lands, because they're still very much ruled by the kingdom as baron and baroness.
I've always kind of wondered how the relationship with the B&Bs in the kingdoms across like the states in particular, and how I guess they fit into the whole hierarchy, because like you're saying here, it's they're your local royalty representatives and they're the people that you see and interact with the most. But I assume in more of the kingdoms over in the States, you see them regularly, but I don't know, the difference between like what you do with the B&Bs to what you do with the P&Ps or the crown, like, right, it fascinates me.
Well, and it's different as well because the West has, the three principalities now. And then they have their baronial heads, and we have what we call the marches, which are not in the principality. So the marches there are baronies out in the marches, and those are our outlying areas. You would call it next door, but they're farther to our north or farther to our south than the lands of actual Sonagua or the Mist. And so those are our marches, and there are people out there that don't get as much interaction. But in like Caid, where they are baronial based, their baron and baronesses sit with the king and queen for court, just like ours do. And in other places that, like in the West, we don't, unless it's a baronial court, the baron and baronesses don't sit with at a court. So you have the king and queen, you have the prince and princesses. If it's a royal court, a crown court, then the crown sits center. And if it's a principality court, the prince and princess sit center, and the king will sit off to the right.
Wow.
But if in like Caid, I'm going to say this, I'm not sure. In Atenveld, I'm pretty sure they still do this. The king and queen sit center no matter whose court it is. So it depends on where you go and how that is treated.
Yeah, that's how Lockhart has evolved.
Yeah.
King and queen sit center regardless.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
and finding out about different groups and kingdoms.
And it's odd going to places that are similar and just off of what you're used to, and especially with like fealty ceremonies and things like that, because you're listening to it and you're like, this is almost what I know, but they've evolved slightly differently. And it's very interesting to see how the different kingdoms do things. And having been a traveler, going to Estrella and going to Pennsic and going to Great Western War and going to Gulf Wars, and then going to visit, you gain friends in all these places. And so then when they're getting an elevation, off you go to Artemisia to go see somebody, get their pelican. And you see all the different courts and the way that they do things. And it's like, oh, this is very interesting. This is cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've been lucky enough to go to another kingdom's coronation, and they have really long courts. We don't have long courts here.
No, not like that. No.
No. 6 hours is not court.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, we say for Caid, we used to say 3 hours in Caid is a long drive or a short court.
Wow.
Couldn't do it. I don't think anyone would tolerate it here, like either being in court or being like observing. I don't think people would be interested. Everyone just leave.
An hour and a half is a long court.
It is. And one of the interesting things that I found when we would do a court at Rowaney Festival is that we'd be in that hall, and it's not a very big hall, and everyone was silent. And when you have outdoor courts, you get the bad peers in the back, because we want to comment on everything, right? And in that Rowaney hall, everyone was silent except the people it was like we were watching a stage show, because nobody was whispering and shuffling and doing stuff in the back. I was amazed.
I will say royal peers are the worst for being at the back.
We're sorry.
Yeah. I'm guilty of it too. We all are.
Yes. I think a part of it is we've been on the thrones and having been through all of that, so know exactly what the crown is going through.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, we should be the ones that are leading the way, right?
Yes. And I really try to pull that, any conversation or even side whispers out of court. No, we have to leave, because if we stand here and say all this stuff, we're going to disrupt the people right in front of us. The people on either side of us. It's not just us being affected.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that we ask of our people is, can you tell us one of your favorite moments of the SCA?
Ooh, I have lots of favorite moments. I think one of the most powerful moments for me was having my squire knighted, because Sir Helga had gone through many of the struggles that I went through, and then she picked up a whole batch of her very own struggles to go through. And yet she persevered and she continued to go. And she is also a traveler, and she has support through the known world of people that love her and have worked with her and have fought with her and have assisted her in learning and kept her going when she wanted to stop. And she would always pick it right back up again. And she is tougher than anyone I know. She's amazing. And because I was here, and Uther called me to let me know that they were looking at her, because, I'm a knight. It's not secret from me. I get to know. So making those decisions and getting there to be there for her knighting, it was incredible. And to see the support that she has and the people that came out for that, to watch that celebration for her, that was a very powerful weekend for us.
I still look at the pictures from that weekend and go, and I'm in awe of the women who are standing around her with those belts on. It's phenomenal to see.
Yes, and that was a part of it. And there are, Helga she knows, most of those women personally, and they have been a part of her journey. But one of the things that we have tried to do over the years is to create that sisterhood for the ladies of chivalry, to have that extra support, so that as we get new female knights, that they don't go through what some of us went through and feeling very alone and not having a resource. And so, and pandemic actually has tightened that up. Sir Leodin, our own from Lockdock, had started the discussions with the ladies of chivalry, and we have 5 or 6 episodes of that Leodin put together for us. And then we all jumped in and did bits and pieces of that. And that was the start of really bringing us together a lot tighter during pandemic, because we know each other, and we've had a Facebook group and we chat back and forth, but we didn't get to see each other really before then. And so that interaction is unique, because you're dealing with women who have gone through similar journeys to you. And a lot of them, I was lucky in the West Kingdom in that, I had 3 or 4 other female fighters that were on the same path with me. And I had people coming up behind me. So it's not like I was alone. Whereas some of these women, we just had the very first 2 knighted in Atlantia during pandemic. The first.
Yep. In
53 years, they finally got knighted. So what are we in now? 56, 55, 56. 56. So they were, it's been a long haul, and some of them have been fighting for 20 plus years. And I was number 31 of the female knights in the society in 2009. We just passed 62. So that tells you how that sped up through time. And so that trajectory of more and more females fighting and more females reaching knighthood, it's coming. It's speeding up, and it's going to not be nearly the oddity I think that it had been for years.
Yeah, that will be amazing.
Yeah,
and it's amazing now.
Yeah.
But, when you consider that there's 62 and there's 2,500 plus male knights, you can see the discrepancy of it.
Yes.
But
you started fighting to be that representative and to be seen. Do you feel the pressure since you've been knighted to maintain that, or to be like, does it feel like a burden for you, or is it something that you carry happily?
In the beginning of being knighted, there was very much that I can't stumble, I can't fall, because I am an exemplar, and that really hindered my learning. because I learned by making mistakes. So I must know a lot, because let me tell you, there have been some mistakes. but that part of being, staying that shining example of perfection is impossible. And so I had to give myself permission to be, okay, I don't have to come into finals in this tournament. I need to be able to accomplish these other goals, and to realize that the goals that I had all along are still valid. I don't have to have somebody else's goals to be valid. And so winning Coronet was a part of that. And that was part of it for me and for Brock. And it was good to be, because people come up and go, oh, you're such a great example. And it's like, thanks. You're such an inspiration to me. I'm glad I'm an inspiration to you. That's not why I did it, but this is bonus. I'm very happy to be inspiring, but I am a peer because of who I am. I am not who I am because I am a peer. Those two, having been in the SCA as long as I have, they are very intermingled at this point. But you get to be a pelican because you do things. You don't necessarily do things because you're a pelican, right? It might be the kick in the ass on the day that you go, I'm just laying in bed, someone else can put up the Eric. And then you're like, oh, I'm gonna get up and go help. So you do. And it's a part of that. If I'm out there, 5 other people will join us. If I send out, my student, he's gonna be by himself doing it. But if I go out, 5 other people are gonna jump in. And I know that. So that means that my ass is out of bed setting up the Eric at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's the way it works. But as with fighting, with heavy fighting, once I came to Lockhawk, I did some, but I did not continue at the same level that I had been. And I am fortunate in that I have Sir Eva and Sir Felix here in my barony with me. And as much as they would love for me to come and spar with them in heavy, it's not something that I've continued in Lockhawk. And a part of that is because I became very concerned with the head injury that comes with heavy fighting. And that is something I decided that I would rather do the fencing and play on that field. First of all, it was something new to me and something that I could learn all the little bits again. I could be new again. I could be a beginner. And that was exciting to me. And I had fencing in my backyard. Heavy fighting, and especially to stay at the level that I was at takes a lot of work. And, hats off to both Felix and Eva for maintaining that level of prowess. But I know for me, I have to fight 3 days a week to maintain prowess, because it does not come naturally to me. It's something that is, I have hewn everything I am from the bedrock of suck. So I looked at that and I was like, and we joke about, oh, we'd love for you to be queen. And it's like, yes, that's lovely. Thank you. I appreciate your vote of confidence. But I know that for me, that path is a lot of work. That's 6 months of training and 4 months of training every day and 3 months of breaking my body just trying to get that good. And then, of course, all the money of travel and trying to go to be with the best so that I can be honed against their edge. And that I looked at that here and the difficulty of being able to maintain that. And I went, I have a stellar rapier community that I can start with, and that I can get a lot of that locally. And then I have the bonus of being able to go afar when it's not COVID to be able to meet with the other fencers and to be able to be a part of that community as well.
Yeah.
And I am sad in some ways to not be a heavy fighter and to be a part of that community intimately, because I'm still a part of that community. I didn't stop knowing stuff just because I stepped off the field. So there's a lot that I can teach and a lot that I can do, but it's not where my drive is. And to set that aside was a very conscious effort, because I knew that I did not have the wherewithal to do both.
Yeah,
big decision.
That.
It was a grown-up decision. I didn't always like it.
And
but I still have all my armor, and I still have my helmet, and I still put it on occasionally and go fight.
Yeah.
Not well, but I fight.
You shouldn't have to do anything for anyone else. Like you do the things that you enjoy. I mean, service generally aside, but in terms of activities, like, you know, if your interests are in heavy or rapier or singing or dancing or whatever, you shouldn't be doing something that is hurting you just for the sake of appearance.
Yeah. And there's so much that the SCA has, and there's so many different avenues that, you know, to be able to taste of all of them is one of the greatest wealth that we have as a group.
Totally. I think we've pushed over time just slightly. Do you have any final questions, Bea?
I want to know what your no shit there I was story is.
So we were at Gulf Wars, and we were in the castle, and the way that they generally run the castle, because it's an actual hard structure castle, right? And now there are more rules concerning the castle, probably because of us. And they decided they had ramps that if you had gauntlets, you could pick up a ramp, right? And it would take 4 of you to carry the ramp, and you could set it up against the wall, and fighters could run up the ramp and jump into the castle, right? Those of us with old knees shudder just to think about this, right? But there are young and spry and foolish that are willing to do that. But what in the inside of the castle, what we discovered is that as a spearman, they have hang time. And while they have hang time, you can spear them like a fish. Book. And then you can transport them over there. And you spear them like a fish. And you throw them over there. And apparently after several of these cases, because we were thrilled, we thought this was great fun. And the marshals decided it was not great fun. They said that we could not anymore do that. So they then created landing zones, and you couldn't hit them until they've landed.
All these rules.
Yeah.
Spoil is fun.
Yeah. So yeah, that was good times.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I think we could have gone for another, 5 hours of various questions, but
well, considering this, have sat in a room and have had 5 hours of various questions, and this is without me asking you guys bunches of questions. Well, I appreciate you both, and I appreciate what you've done for the Principality and for keeping us, somewhat on the rails while everything else around us is going crazy.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been nice to connect to different people across the kingdom, and to be able to share stories. And I think it's really important getting to know the names that you hear, and the heroes, and the doers, and it's been lovely. So thank you very much for giving up your time, and I'm sure that everyone's enjoyed hearing all the stories. Bea, what do we have coming up next?
So next Friday night, we are actually interviewing Mistress Philippa Ginevra Francesca de Luciano from Barony. So those of us that are members of Vampire, I see her as Vampire Mum, otherwise known as Pip. So that will be very exciting, and I know that she will be discussing lots of her passions, because she loves apothecary and medicine, and has run some really weird collegia on stuff in the past. So thank you so much, Samari. On behalf of Crown Between Two Roses, thank you so much for joining and watching us. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and we will see you next week. Okay, bye.
Bye.